We'll do a review in Likutei Siches. This is in volume 26, Chelek Chavav. This is the first Sicha for the portion of Beshalach. In this Sicha, the Rebbe will discuss the Pasuk. It says that when they left Mitzrayim, Moshe Rabbeinu took the bones of Yosef with him as he had made them swear that when they go out from Egypt, they'll take his bones with them. And the Rebbe explains the connection between having the bones of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Yosef, with them as they were going into the desert. And the placement of this pasuk seems to be, as we were talking about, that Moshe Rabbeinu, as the verse says, did not lead them directly into Eretz Yisrael, but he went there Hamidbar Yamsuf, and then he took the bones of Moshe. The Rebbe explains what the idea of Yosef is, that when you go in a midbar and you have challenges, Yosef means Yosef Hashem li bein achar, make me an additional son to make from the achar, from somebody who has gone astray, turn him into a son. This is particularly necessary when you find yourself in the desert. The Rebbe will explain in detail. The Rebbe will also explain the connection of the month of Shevat, which is always in the portion of Beshalach. And the Rebbe will also explain the connectors to the Yortzeit of the previous Rebbe on Yud Shvat, in which the Friedrich's Rebbe's name, of course, is Yosef, as the Rebbe will go through in detail. We'll go step by step. Aleph, Beshalach Aleph. So, B'tchilas Parshosenu, in the beginning of our Parsha, so there is the first verse, Nochdem Posik, after the verse, Vayase velikim esaom derech hamidbar Yamsuf, Vachamushim olu bnei Yisrael meretz Mitzrayim. The pasuk says, first it says, and Pari sent them out of Mitzrayim, and then is the second pasuk says that Vayase velikim esaom, Hashem circled the nation derech hamidbar, by way of the desert towards the Yamsuf, and v'chamushim olu bnei Yisrael meretz Mitzrayim, and they went up armed, or 1/5, as Rashi says, they came up from the land of Egypt. So after that, the pasuk says, state, Vayikach Moshe satzmes Yosef imoi, that Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. Ki hashbeya hishbiya goimer, because he had made them swear that you shall take up my bones from here with you. When you go up of Mitzrayim, make sure to take my bones out with you. Now, the placement of this verse is the issue over here. Take my bones with him seems like after the verse tells you that he did not lead them directly to Egypt because he was afraid that they might want to Lenochem and Derech Eretz Plishtim, because he was afraid they might go back to Mitzrayim. So the pasuk says, so he circled them around Derech Hamidbar Yamsuf. So there should not be no mulchama over there, so they won't go back. Then the pasuk says they took the bones of Yosef. How does the pasuk taking the bones of Yosef fit right after telling you the story that he didn't take them directly? So what's the connection with taking up the bone of Yosef at this spot? So stellt sich der Kleyoker. The Kleyoker places himself of smichas ha-pasuk on the placement of this verse that it's next to. It says Vayikach Moshe's Atzmus Yosef zum Pasuk Shalamaylo. How is this connect that Moshe took the bones of Yosef to the previous pasuk? And the Rebbe is going to bring down two interpretations of the Kli Yakar, but the Rebbe is going to question that, especially in Pshat, if we can really say that this is the meaning in the Pasha. So the Kli Yakar asked the question: why is the Vayikach Moshe as Asmas Yosef connected to the pasuk Shalamayla, to the verse that precedes it, where it says "Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael"? Now he teaches what is the meaning of "Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael." Rashi says that it means either 1/5 because the other 4/5 died during the plague of the Choshech before, or Chamushim means they were armed. But he explains the words "Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael" based upon this Masbir behegdem, and he explains it by introducing was a state in Yalkut Parsha Zu that is written in the Yalkut on the portion in Beshalach. It says Shahoyu Mahalchim Bamidbar Shnei Arenos. During their journey in the desert, there were two boxes, two arenas, two coffins, two boxes were traveling with them. There was the Aron Ashchina, that was after the Eberster instructed and they built the Mishkan. So they had a Aron, a box for the divine in which the luchas were placed. And also they had the Aron Shel Yosef, they had the coffin of Yosef. So there were two boxes basically going along in the road. Says the Yalkut that so the nations of the world were asking, what is this? What is this box over here? These two boxes. What are they doing? Ve'ishivu lahem. So the Jewish people responded to them, Kiyem zeh sheyosef kiyem kol aseres hadibris. That the one who's lying in this box, which is Yosef, he fulfilled the 10 commandments, which is in the other box. Yosef kiyem kol aseres hadibris. The one in this Aron did what's in the other. He fulfilled, he observed all the 10 commandments. Those are the luchas that were in the other box. Shebeluchas shebar nashchina, which were in the luchas that was in the box of the shchina. Cool. So that's the connection of two boxes. So the Yalkut, the Kli Yakar explains, based on this medrash, that the Aronis had a connection. He explains what it means and the placement of the bones of Yosef over here. And that's why according to this, he explains the connection to specifically what the verse says, Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael. They armed. What was the armament? What was they armed with, the Bnei Yisrael? Freer state, previously it stated, Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael mezuyonim, that they went up armed. They went up with arms. What is the arms that they went up? Ukli zayin shalahem, says the Kli Yakar. What is their ammunition? What is their arms? Who are not kodesh. That is the Aron Kodesh that was going with them. But as soon as they went out of Mitzrayim, it says they went v'chamushim. They went out, but there was no Aron yet. There was no Aron Kodesh yet. There was no Mishkan yet. There was before. So what served in the interim, at least for one, as a armed, that the armed chamushim means the Shekhinah, because that is the armament. But there was no armament over there yet. There was no Kli Zayin. There was no ammunition because the Shekhinah wasn't yet in a box. The luchas were not yet placed in the Aron. So the pasuk sort of explains itself. Chamushim olu in the Israel. They were armed. Und if them kum der Posik shalach. So therefore, the Posik that follow comes. Vayikach Moshe Satzmes Yosef Imei. That Moshe takes the Atzmes Yosef Imei, these bones with him. If Masbir Zain, to explain was is der Inyan von the Kli Zayin Lifnei Matan Torah. What is the idea of the ammunition before the Torah was given? They didn't have yet the Chamushim. They didn't have yet the Oren HaKodesh that went with them. So the Pasuk sort of explains itself. Eidus is given the Oren HaKodesh before the Torah was given, before Aseres HaDibris, before the Matan Torah. What was the Chamushim? Ados is Asmis Yosef, that is Yosef's bones. Balaroina Shel Yosef, because the coffin of Yosef, it was similar, Ki ilu hoya chakukim boy kol aseres hadibris, as if all the 10 sayings were engraved in that coffin, in the box that Yosef's bones were. So that's the chamushim that served. And the reason is because Yosef fulfilled all the mitzvahs as the two aronis, like it says that I quoted before from the Yalkut, that they were together. So this served as the temporary until the other Aron came. It continued later on as well, but it served as the Chamushim Olu B'nai Yisrael armed. How were they armed? They were armed because the bones of Yosef, who fulfilled Kiyam, all the 10 commandments, went along with that. That's one interpretation of the Kliyakar. And then he says, and then he gives a second explanation. So this explanation is that it follows exactly the words that preceded. It says, "V'chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael." They went out armed, and he says they take the bones of Yosef because that's the armament, that's the ammunition that they took with them. But then he gives another explanation that this is basically explaining the general pasuk of before, as es kum behemshich zu der haschole from Friedrich pasuk, that this follows the beginning of the previous pasuk. V'bald as vayase v'elikim esa derech hamidbar yamsuf. Since God circled the people by way of the midbar through the Yamsuf, Pasuk says that Shem didn't lead them directly, but he took them by the way of the midbar, in the way of the Yamsuf, the way to the it's Choshav Moshe. So Moshe was thinking, says the Kliyakar, in his second interpretation, Ula Yaakov Aleim Hayam. Perhaps now that they're going by way of the Yamsuf, maybe the water, the Yam, the ocean, maybe it's going to block. They won't be able to go through. So he takes the bones of Yosef as a merit that this water should split. As Yikra Lahem B'schus Yosef. So then he said, it will split for them in the merit of Yosef. As our sages of blessed memory actually said that it's split in the merit of Yosef. Min posik, it says Hayom Ra Vayonis. It says in the posik, we say in the Tehillim, that when the sea saw, it ran away, meaning it split. When the sea saw the Yidden coming, it split away. Maro, but what exactly did it see? Atzmos of Shel Yosef, the bones of Yosef. So you see from that saying of our sages that it was the bones of Yosef. So now the pasuk is saying to you in the beginning that Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayikach Moshe takes the bone of Yosef to explain, since the pasuk started saying in the beginning of the pasuk that Hashem didn't lead them directly through Derech Eretz Plishtim, through the land of Plishtim, but he leads them through the Yam, and the Yam will need to be split for them to move on. So the pasuk says he takes the Atzmas Yosef. So when the merit of Yosef that the Yam will split, as the Chazal say that Maro Atzmis Yosef, and that's what he brought with him, and that's the placement of the pasuk of taking the bones of Yosef with him right here after the pasuk states the um, circling that the Yidden didn't go directly, but they went into through the way of the Yamsuf, so they have the bones of Yosef with them. That's the second interpretation of the Kli Yakar. So one of them is that it's directly explaining the words of Chamushim Olu B'nai Yisrael, that they were armed. Armed with what? With the coffin of Yosef, because Yosef fulfilled the Ten Commandments, and that was in place until they had the actual Orin going with them. So that was the Chamushim. Or that they had the Yosef, because since they were going to go through the Yamsuf, they needed the bones of Yosef because the Yosef's chutzah was split. The Rebbe says, according to Pshat, since we haven't learned yet these ideas that about the Oren going with them, the Oren Ashchina, we didn't learn yet about that it was in the merit of Yosef. So therefore, in Pshat, it's hard to say that this is the only reason. This is the reason why it's placed over here. Says Aber tzarich biur in Beida Pirushim, but we require explanation in both of these things in interpretation. Ubefrat al derech hapshat, especially when we're going to go according to the literal level of study, understanding in the simple level. It's difficult to say that that's why the placement of the bones of Yosef was put in over here at this pasuk for these reasons mentioned in the Kli Yakar. In the psukim frier, because in the verses previously, vert nid der mont der inyan, it's not mentioned the idea as mi is gegangen in Midbar mitten Aron Hashchina, that you were going in the desert with the box that the divine with the luchas in there. It's not mentioned that. So ubemela, and therefore we're saying, according to the first interpretation of the Kli Yakar, as Arena shel Yosef hat verbitten them Oren HaKodesh, that the box of Yosef, the coffin of Yosef, exchanged for the Oren HaKodesh. But you can't learn about an exchange when we don't even know about that it went along. It doesn't say anywhere before this place. So how we're saying over here that, oh, they took the Yosef to exchange that. Und es wird euch nicht der Mond, euch nicht in the Psukim Shalachar, that also not mentioned. And this is even in the Psukim later on. The fact that the Aron Kodesh went with them, that says later on in the Pasuk, but the fact that they saw the bones of Yosef, and that's the reason that the sea split, that doesn't say in the Pasuk or anywhere. That the splitting of the Sea of Reeds, of Yamsuf, was in the merit of Yosef, it doesn't say anywhere in the Pasuk. That says in the Medrash on the Pasuk in Tehillim, where it says Hayom Rov Ayonis, but not in the Chumash. How are we going to say that that's why the Pasuk put it in over here for something which is not really known to us? Seems a little difficult. So the Rebbe wants to say that really that Yosef's journey with the Yidden in the desert that was the reason they took Yosef's bones over here. The Torah basically saying, as they're going around to journey in the Midbar, we need the bones of Yosef. We need the Atzmis Yosef, not like we were saying before from the Kli Yakar, but there is a reason. Since the Eibishter is taking them in the Midbar, now in the Midbar we need the bones of Yosef. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu takes the bone. From them is moving. Now, really, when you look in the simple text, Yosef says, I don't want to be Mitzrayim. When you go out, take me with you. So it doesn't seem like the purpose of taking the bones is to help them make their journey in the desert. That's what they use the bones. But still, that is uh, the additional intention. For them is move on. As afal pi was das nemen asmes Yosef is beikir an inyan. Even though the fact that they took Yosef's bone is mainly an idea was shaykh to Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's only connected to exit of Egypt because that was really what he told them. Ki hashbas Yosef. This was the swear, the oath that Yosef administered. He says, "Pokod yifkod goimer v'alisem esatzmaisai." When God remember, He will remember you to go out of Egypt, out of Mitzrayim, and you bring up my bones with you. So that was mainly was not doesn't talk about you'll have my bones to go in the desert. It's just take me out of Mitzrayim. Is das aber euch verbunden, but it's also connected mit Vayasev Elikim Esaom Derech Hamidbar. It's connected with the circling of the people by way of the Midbar. They need to take the bones of Yosef. The halicha in Midbar Davke, this fact that you are traveling in the Midbar, we need the bones of Yosef. The Deirish Biur. So we require explanation. Was is the shayches from the Tzvei Inyonim? What's the connection from these two ideas that we're talking about over here of uh, Yosef going with them when they're going in the desert? What's the connection that going in the desert requires Yosef? Euch darf man verstehen. And the Rebbe also wants to know what's the lesson for this, for us. Basically, we go through the exile and we're also going in a midbar sort of, that we need to hold the Atzmis Yosef in order to be able to go through. But the Rebbe says, "V'darf man verstehen," we need to understand. The bald as ha-Torah hinitzchis, since Torah is eternal. Siz a hayroa zu jeden Iden b'chol hazmanim u b'chol hamekoynes. It's a lesson for every Jew in all the times and all places. Is move on so it's understood. As euch der inyan, also this aspect, this detail that when you go in the midbar, you need the Atzmis Yosef. Vayikach Moshe's Atzmis Yosef ima geindik in midbar. That taking the bones of Yosef while going in midbar, b'yitziosem and Mitzrayim, when they went on Mitzrayim, is in them, is in imdo hayro nitzchis. There is an eternal lesson over here. We have to say that there is an eternal lesson over here because this is a one-time thing that happened over there, that they were going in the midbar, they took the bones of Yosef. But the eternal message for us is that, what is the message for us that when we go, what's the lesson, the eternal message from this play, from this story? Ubahisofas prat, and adding this detail. We're talking about going out of Egypt, traveling in the journey. So we add this detail. As kumtan inyan nitzchi, we tell you something which is eternally important. In the Ein Molekipula, he did it once. Vayikach Moshe's Atzmis Yosef, he took the bones of Yosef. So we're saying that one time happening of taking the bones of Yosef, Arois Geindik from Mitzrayim, going out of Egypt. So what's the lesson for it? What are we supposed to make out of this? So in summary, the Rebbe was trying to understand over here what is the pasuk of taking the bones of Yosef placed right after saying that he circled they circled the by way of the desert, and they didn't go directly through the land, and the Rebbe basically says we have to say that that has to do with when you go out into the desert. What is there's a lesson over here that they need the bones of Yosef, even though the bones of Yosef they just needed to leave Mitzrayim, but there is something about the bones of Yosef traveling with them in the journey of the desert that to help them. And what's the lesson for the eternal lesson? And the Rebbe also brought down the two interpretation of the Kliyakar, that one, that this is the ammunition until the actual Aron was built. They used the coffin of Yosef based on the Yalkut, and also the interpretation of that it's the schus of Yosef that the sea was later on split. But the Rebbe says this is not mentioned in the pasuk, so the Rebbe is going to learn a lesson from that. Journeying in the desert requires the bones of Yosef, as the Rebbe will continue. Oh, his base. The Rebbe is going to point out that the pasuk uses the language that Moshe took the bones of Yosef, Atzmos Yosef. Seems a little bit strange to talk about deceased, talk about Yosef, talk about his bones. Why doesn't it say he took the coffin of Yosef? The Actually, when Yosef instructed them, he also said, "V'ha'alisem es atzmoisai mizeh itchem," bring up my bones. But it could have said it in a more honorable, respectful way when it talks about Moshe Rabbeinu bringing up the bones of Yosef. Instead of saying bones, it could have said the coffin or the body or something. But bones seems a little bit in a not such a respectful way. The word bones, the bones are the strength or the essence, the atzoma is the etzem. The illusion here is that he took along the essence of Yosef with him. In the metaphorically speaking, what they needed in order to go through this journey in the desert is the bones, is the essence of Yosef. And the essence of Yosef is, as his mother said when she gave birth to him, Yosef Hashem li bein achar. Yosef, to add, not just to add the son, but ben achar. What does it mean, ben achar? To make from the achar a son. Let's look inside base. That man das verstehen behagdim was steht in Pasuk. We'll understand this by first introducing what the pasuk states: "Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imay." That Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. The lechayra seemingly ein hochinami. Yes, it's true. As behashbaose, when he administered the oath, had Yosef genutzt auf sich dem Loshen. Yosef used on himself. He used the language. The Eretz Messiah in Posuk, as the Posuk concludes over there, "V'halisem es atzmoisai mizeh itchem." You shall bring up my bones from here with you. So Yosef himself actually said bones when he was talking about himself. So while that is true, that's what Yosef said. V'bald ober es is nit kein loshen shall covet far tzadikim. Since, however, this isn't a respectful language for the righteous, HaTorah l'cheire gedarf nutzen, so the Torah seemingly should have used nit dem loshen atzmes Yosef, not the language of the bones of Yosef. Nor vayikach Moshe, but should say Moshe took as Aaron Yosef imoy, the coffin of Yosef with him. Obefrat lepirush aleph und kliyakar, especially according to the first interpretation of the kliyakar. The kliyakar says that we're talking about the substitute for the Oren HaKodesh that had the luchis. So, of course, that's something which Yosef stood for, not the bones of Yosef. Why would the person not say Oren, this Oren and the other Oren, one Oren is substituted for the other Oren, but why use the language of Atzmas Yosef? Or another similar language. The word Atzmas Yosef seems to be not respectful. So v'yesh loymar, so we can say ados gufa kum der posuk madgish zayin. Now this itself, the posuk is coming here to emphasize. As arois gendik from Mitzrayim hat Moshe genommen mit sich Atzmus Yosef. That Moshe took with himself the Atzmus Yosef, the bones meaning the essence of Yosef. Was Atzmus werden azoi angerufen. Why do we call the bones Atzmus? Why are they called bones Etzem? Weil sie seinen Etzem betoikev ha'odom v'abal chai. The bones are the essence, the force, the strength of the person and the living and the animals. That's the bones, is the structure. That shows of the strength. That's the essence. The atzmius from Yosef. That is the essence of Yosef. Atzmis Yosef means the essence of Yosef. Etzem in Yonif from Yosef. The essence of Yosef's, what Yosef stands for, what Yosef is the meaning. Und das mitnehmen Atzmis Yosef, and this taking along the essence of Yosef is beikir negeya. It's mainly important. Why are we taking along the essence of Yosef? Is while because we're going in a desert, on the road of a desert. Kidl Kamon, as the Rebbe will explain. Ois Gimel. What is Atzmis Yosef? So what is the essence of Yosef? Bertes gesagt in sein Name. So this is really in his name. The name Yosef. Yosef means to add. And look what the mother called him when she called him Yosef. Yosef. The name Yosef. Was vatikra shmo Yosef lemer. When she gave birth to Yosef, Rachel, his mother, said, she called him Yosef, vatikra shmo Yosef. She called him Yosef lemer, saying, Yosef Havaya li bein achar. May Hashem add to give me another son. This was the first of her two sons. She had later on Binyamin, and she prayed, I want another son. Yosef Hashem li bein achar. So that's why she called him Yosef. Thus haste. So what this means is, in Yonesh Yosef is as a tzukumen noch aben. The idea of Yosef is to be another son, not the son. But not just another son. That's not yet the essence of Yosef. It's ben acher, a son of somebody who's an acher, who's estranged, and make him into a son, turn him around. Das is aber noch nicht shleimus atzmus Yosef. This is not yet the wholesomeness of the essence of Yosef's essence, the bones of Yosef, the essence. If just having another son, because then the Torah should have stopped. From demut volt gedabstein, nor then it should have just said, Yosef abayeli ben. May Hashem add to me a son, without using the word acher. For them, was Yosef is lamer. The fact that Yosef says, his mother says, saying, Yosef Hashem li ben acher, to add another son. Ben an acher, another is moving ados is nit ben stam. It's not just a son, a plain, nor ben acher, a son which is acher. As von acher soll man machen a ben, that from the other you should make a son. Von a Eden welcher is an acher. A Yid who is other, who is different. It's a different conduct. Sein Hanhog is Hanhog acheres from Yiddishkeit. The ones whose conduct is a different conduct from Yiddishkeit. Biz Rahman al-Islam, to the extent that, God forbid, in ganzen acher, totally other, she'enu tzad kedusha, is not in the side of holiness. So darf from him, from the acher, darf von ihm machen a ben. Then you need to make him turn him into a son, to a ben. Turning into a son means I Eden was in im zetzach hazeris a ben. Make him to such a Jew that you can see in him that he is a son. Bonim atem Hashem alekechem, your sons to God, your God. So basically, Yosef stands for turning around and making an acher, one who is estranged, different, and away, turning him in and making him into a son of Hashem, ben Hashem Lekecha. And the Rebbe further brings down now from the Tzemach Tzedek that the acher is actually alludes to those people that are referred to as acher, others, which were some of the really uh, bad people, and Yeravam, Chaverov, these were people who were sinners. And you're saying that uh, turn them around, which means why would she ask to have a Yisrael ben Achar? She wants a son like an Achar, a Rishoyim. What is she? No, but it means that from the Achar, even people who are totally Achar, make them into a ben. Uvider Tzemach Tzedek is mevayer einem for the Pirushim in Maimon HaMedrash. Tzemach Tzedek explains one of the interpretations in this saying of the Medrash from Pasik on the verse. It says Yosef Hashem li ben Achar. So one of the interpretations over there, it says, who is the ben Achar? As Achar means also Maisa Acherim ki goin Yirav v'Chaverov. That it's talking, it's not just other, but it's extreme other, which means he did the act of the Acherim. Those are known as the others. Ki goin, as for example, Yirav v'Chaverov. Yirav and his friends, they were sinners and caused Chayte Machti Sarabim. They sinned and caused others to sin. It would seem surprisingly, was Rachel had mispalgiv, so Rachel asked Hashem should add another son an Acher. So by Yirtzukom and Aben, should has a son. Was is Oisa Maisa Acherim could go in Yerovam v'Chaverov to do the act of others like Yerovam and his friends. What was she praying for that? So the Tzemach Tzedek explains what she meant is to add a bain from the acher, not that it should be an acher, but Yosef Hashem li bain acher from the acher make a bain. Nor those goofies that Pirush for Yosef Hashem li bain acher. This itself is the explanation. Make a ben acher, not that you should have an acher son, but the acher should become a ben. As from einem was his Yosef Maisa Acherim, that from one who does the act, he acts like Acherim, like the others. So Verna ben La'aviv Shabashamayim LaKadosh Baruch Hu should turn into a son to his father in heaven, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Und der Inyan is negeya by Mareisgein from Mitzrayim und al Sachon Elozeh. And this idea of adding a son, an Atzmis Yosef, to add from Nachar a son, is connected, and it's important when you go out of Mitzrayim. Un als hachon elozeh, and to prepare for this idea, to prepare for the Exodus. Alisim et prepare the Exodus of Egypt was damned by Yitzias Mitzrayim, because at that point, when they left Egypt, when the Exodus of Egypt is nizgale geworden b'chol ha'olam, then it was revealed in all of the world, hakiyum be'poyle begoloi from the Anzag. And then it was revealed the whole world, the fulfillment actually and openly from the command, Shalach as B'ni, send my son. Hashem was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu to go to Parai to say, Shalach as B'ni, send my son. They are my son. As Eden seinen Bonim, that the Yidden are Hashem's sons. The Riber. And therefore, because then it's revealed that the Yidden are Bonim, Midosei Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Midah Keneged Midah. Hashem does measure for measure. We were revealed as Hashem's Bonim. We also have to make Hashem's Bonim, measure for measure. Is by Marois game from Mitzrayim. So when they're going out of Egypt, Hab Eden, So the Yidden durch Moshe, through Moshe, Moshe, which is Roy Yisrael Metzim Mitzrayim. He was the Jewish shepherd. He took him out of Egypt. He takes Atzmes Yosef, Genumen Mezich Atzmes Yosef. They took the essence of Yosef. He took along that concept as a Yid macht ezol zukommen noch a ben von dem Ebersten, that the Yid makes that they should add another son to Hashem. When we became Bonim, when Hashem showed us Bonim, so measure for measure, which Hashem works, we need to also bring in more Yid, make a ben, make a son for the Ebersten. Und darf das Poil sein, and this needs to be affecting afilu if azav elcheriv is done given an acher, even as somebody who was a stranger till then, that he too should become a ben. So the Rebbe explains here in this chapter 3 that the essence of Yosef means to add another son, and not just another son, but to add a son from an acher, from a stranger, from somebody different, and make him to a son. And brings down the Tzemach Tzedek, who says that it's even somebody like Acher, who were called like Yerovam ben Avot. It's not like she was praying she wants a ben Acher, a son like Acher. She wants the Acher to turn into a ben. And this is as they're leaving Egypt, because at Egypt it was revealed, Hashem says, they are my children, they are my sons. And that, measure for measure, we have to also, through Moshe Rabbeinu, take along that idea of Atzmis Yosef, to turn that another Yid, to make another Yid from an Acher into a Ben. In Ois Daled, the Rebbe explains that this is also connected to the end of the Parsha, which talks about the war with Amalek, that Yeshua waged the war, in which we see that the war was placed to protect those people who have been expelled from the Shekhinah, which means they were achers, and to bring them in. This is the connection from the beginning. Now we're talking about the Atzmis Yosef, the essence of turning around. That connects with the end of the Parsha, the beginning with the end of the Sedra of Beshalach. Dalad, Al Pi Hanal, move on, their notes, based on the above, we can also understand how the beginning of the parsha is tied to the end. From Tchilas Parsha Seinem B'Tsefa, from the beginning of the parsha to the end. In Sefer Parsha wird erzählt, in the end of the parsha it's related, Vayove Amalek, Vaylochamim Yisrael B'Refidim. So Amalek comes and he wages war with the Yidden in Refidim. So Vayomer Moshe Yeshua B'char Lo Anoshim. So Moshe then says to Yeshua, let's choose the people, and then we're going to wage war against Amalek. So who was the one that actually waged the war? Was Yeshua. As the Milchama is geführt geworden al Yidei Yeshua, this war was led by Yeshua. Why was it led by Yeshua? Und wie steht in the Forschung, in Medrashim, as it says in the Medrashim, der Tam farvos the Milchamot gedarf sein durch Yeshua. What is the reason why this war needed to take place through Yeshua? Niduch Moshe, not through Moshe. So Moshe says to Yeshua to go ahead and wage the war. Why was it done through Yeshua, not to Moshe? So it says in the Medrashim, Val Yeshua is Mizera Yosef. Yeshua is from the seed of Yosef. Uksiv, and with regards to Yosef, it says, V'hoya beis Yaakov eishu beis Yosef lahavo. The house of Yaakov is fire, but the house of Yosef, the descendant of Yaakov, Yaakov's son, would be like a big flame. Ubeis Esav lakash, that's in the Navi, in the house of Esav will be like straws. Basically, um, Yosef can burn away the straw of Esav. He is the one to beat him. So therefore, Amalek, and Amalek is the Mezera Esav. Amalek is the seed, son of Eliphaz, who was the son of Esav. So Amalek is beaten by Yehoshua, who was the son of Yosef, and Yosef is a flame that beats up, that consumes the kash of Esav of Amalek. Okay, so now how was Amalek even beginning? And I was going to explain how the war was to protect even the people that were achirs. They were not on the highest standard. The Meglichkeit as Amalek had gekent Milchama haben mit Eden. What was the possibility? How was there a possibility that Amalek can wage war against the Eden? Is gekumen mitzad them that came because was by the Eden is geworden a sofik in Emunah, because by the Jewish people developed a doubt in their belief. The pasuk says, before it says that Amalek came, the pasuk that the Yidden were questioning, Hayesh Hashem bikirbeinu im ayin, is there God amongst us or not? So that was a questioning that they were questioning. Un welche Yidden hat Amalek gekent oder? So first of all, what brought about Amalek was the people that doubted, is God amongst us? And which Yidden was Amalek able to touch? Nor in Divo seine Gewinn, the pasuk says, Vayizane b'chol kol ha-nechasholim acharecha. Nechasholim acharecha means those who were weakened and they were outside. Virashi Taish. Rashi translate, what does nechasholim acharecha mean? Chaseri koyach, those who were lacking. They were faltering. They were lacking energy. Machmas chatam shoya onam pota, because of their sins. And the cloud used to expel them. So they weren't protected by the cloud that protected all the Yidden. And nor indi was eine given acharecha, and they were behind you, meaning they weren't part in the cloud that protected them. The Eden was haben sich gefunden innewenig, but those Jews that were on the inside, they hat Amalek nicht gekannt darin. Amalek could not touch them. Kommt Amalek durch dem Yetzer Hara, so Amalek comes, which means Amalek is the Yetzer Hara. By each one has that Amalek. Und fragt, and asked the question, wie bald as Amalek hat milchome, nor midi chasede koich machmas cheltum, since Amalek is only waging war, those who lack energy because they sin. So who are we protecting over here? Who is the one in trouble? Really? Those who are lacking emunah because they sin. Aber nicht die welche seine gewinn betuche onen, but not those that were within the cloud. What is the hechrech? So why is this necessity? Why do they have to, as the Eden Yirei Chet, those who are do fear sins, they're not nechasholim, so not raise game from onon. They should also leave the cloud, because in order to wage war with Amalek, they had to go out to war. So they have to go out from onon. Virashi taich, as Rashi translates, vitsei min ha'onon, go out of the cloud. Un hilochem ba'amalek, and go say hilochem, go out. What does it mean? Go out. Go out from the cloud and wage war. That's how Rashi teaches the word say, and we're going to wage war with Amalek. Now, to go out of the cloud means you're exposing yourself to danger. If you go out of the cloud, it's a place of danger, both physically and spiritually. And so why are you going out? And das als in Eden was this is all in order to save such Jews which were expelled by the cloud. So one wonders, why is it everybody go out from the cloud, lose your protection in order to go and save those that Amalek can impact, because they are weak from their sins and they're outside of the cloud. So that's why the beginning of the parsha explains that. Is the Agdoma liYitzias Mitzrayim leMechemes Amalek. So what is the introduction for the exodus of Egypt and the war with Amalek? Vayikach Moshe Satzmis Yosef Imei. That Moshe takes the bones of Yosef with him. And B'meila, and therefore, B'shas es kumt a matzav. So that when it comes a situation, as a yid is an amaymet fun achar, so vinusha b'shamayim. When a yid is in such a standing, he's a stranger, he's an achar to our Father in heaven. Efrekt, he asks, he challenges, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, is God amongst us? Vider Moshel was Rashi elaborates with an example. This questioning, is God with amongst us with this war that took place with Amalek? Rashi says, "Adam shehirki bonoy al kisefei v'yotzol aderech." A person was riding his son on his shoulders, and they go out to the road into the road. Poga ba'adam echad. And the father was protecting him from all kinds of problems on the way. And then they met a person, Amar Loye Saben, so the son who's riding on his father's shoulder. Reisas Abba, have you seen my father? Here, his father is riding him on his shoulder, and he's protecting him. And all kinds of problems that came along the way. He was saved. And then he asked the stranger, do you see my father? So Amar Loye, so his father said to him, you don't know where I am. The Yidden were questioning, is Hashem with us? Hashem has done all these miracles, constantly being with them. And yet they're still asking, is there God amongst us? So Hashem says, okay, puts them down the war with Amalek. So you'll see, ask me where I am. So Amalek comes and reminds them, oh, so then the Yidden start to turn to Hashem. So what it means really, erzetnit, that he doesn't see, anerkentnit, he doesn't recognize, he doesn't recognize his father, God forbid. He acts and he does the act of others. But other, the achedim. Dan fodert sich von Eden. So then you require the Yidden, the going out to war, those who went to fight, he should choose. So it's Rashi brings down, and that they took out the one who went to fight were the mighty, the powerful ones, and those who feared heaven. To go outside of the cloud, to save those Jews, and to bring him back into the cloud. So that he can see our Father in heaven. Zen wie der Eberster vernimmt sich mit jeder Eden als sein Ben. To see how Hashem takes care with every Jew, makes him as his son. Tomid ani benechem, as the Rashi says, I'm always amongst you. Umezumen l'chol tzarchechem, like the mashal of the son, Rashi continues, and he says, I'm always with you. I'm always prepared for all your needs. And you don't question whether I'm here. I'm here for you all the time. Und gesehen werden von allen, and then everybody will be able to see. He will be seen by everyone as that is a ben, that he's really a son. Und das ist der Teuchen v'kavone. So this is the idea and the intent was the Milchama is given al Yidei Yeshua, that this war was through Yeshua. The Milchama, the actual war, is geführt geworden al Yidei Moshe Rabbeinu b'shluchus shel Moshe. That was led by Moshe Rabbeinu, and in the mission of Moshe, they were Anshe Moshe, they were people of Moshe. Zusammen der Mit, but together with Moshe Rabbeinu leading the war, that it says, B'char lanu, choose for us, meaning for Moshe and the people of Moshe, Adi Milchame Ratven Eden, wo seinen Cholush b'manoso. Who saved the Jews that are weak in their belief? Chasedi koyach machmas chetom, that they are lacking strength because of their sin. That's the definition of the nechasholim acharecha, those who are in trouble. Who is the one that actually is out there saving them? It needed to be done through Yehoshua, who's from the seed of Yosef. Well, this is Avodas Yosef. This is what Yosef stands for. Yosef Havai Li Ben Achar. Add to me another son. That is the Avodah of Yosef. Was Moshe hat sich mitgenommen herausgehendig von Mitzrayim, and that Moshe took along going out of Egypt, that Atzmas Yosef, the sense of Yosef. The Rebbe explains the beginning in the Sois Dala, the beginning of the parsha with the Atzmas Yosef that he took along, which explains how and why it was Yehoshua that led the actual war against the Amalek that we read later on, because the Amalek war was a response to those who questioned the belief in Hashem. They asked Hashem is with us or not, and that's why the Eibishter brought Amalek on them. So it turns out that we're having the people go fight for them and go out of the cloud, which puts them in danger. And why would we do that? And the answer to that is that Moshe took the Atzmas Yosef. This is uh, the avodah of Yosef, of bringing in those people who question, as Rashi says, they're the child on his shoulder, and they ask, is Hashem here? Those people, even Hashem is always prepared for them, and yet we bring them in. So we need strong people, Yirechet, people of Moshe Rabbeinu, to bring them back into the Onon. So Moshe Rabbeinu leads the war and everything. He chooses the people should be righteous people, but who? It's Yeshua, the son of Yosef, because that represents the avodah that Moshe Rabbeinu took out the Atzmis Yosef, and Yeshua, descendant of Yosef, to go ahead and overcome and bring them back, the Acher, into a Ben. And this now explains why this needs to be done on the road of the Midbar. The Midbar basically is a place of challenges. It's an uninhabited place, both uninhabited spiritually and physically. And basically, it's a place where there's a lot of challenges. And therefore, when you go into a midbar, metaphorically speaking, a midbar, a desert, you need to have the bones of Yosef with you to give you and bring you back and to hold you strong. Let's look inside. Hey, move on the smichas hapsukim. We also understand the juxtaposition of the verses of taking Yosef after going into the midbar. The pasuk says he circled them in the midbar. Was the pasuk Vayikach Moshe Atzmas Yosef Imay. The verse that Moshe takes the bone of Yosef with him, kommt noch dem pasuk that follows the verse Vayasiv Elikim Es Ha'am Derech HaMidbar Yamsuf, that he Kim circled the people by way of the midbar and the Yamsuf. Der mit them and Atzmas Yosef is given Egeya. It was important to take along the bones of Yosef when they're going in the midbar Derech Yamsuf. Ob Eden wollten Tekef herein in Eretz Yisrael, had the Jews entered Israel immediately, was damals volt given Agula Shlema, then it would have been a complete redemption. It would have been once and for all a complete redemption if they went straight. Wird man sich nicht genötigt zu lieb sich. So for themselves, it wasn't necessary so much, if I feel so much, in Atzmas Yosef. We didn't need so much Atzmas Yosef, the bones, because we all would have been on the righteous path. We didn't have to go through all these journeys of a midbar, so to take along the essence of Yosef. Because Hashem circles the people by way of the midbar. From Mitzrayim seien Niden gegangen in Midbar. From Egypt, the Jews went to the Midbar. Midbar hagodl v'hanoira nochash soro v'akra b'tzemoyim asher emoyim. They went in this. The Midbar is the great, awesome place where there is snakes, saraf, and scorpions, and there's thirst. There's no water. Basically, says amokim sakone begashmis. It's a place of danger physically, and the reason why it's dangerously physically, that represents also that it's a place of danger spiritually. Lo yoshav odom shom, people don't live there. It's a person quoting from the verse, Lo yoshav odom shom, it's not a settled place. Amokim velcher is nit bisug von yishuv von atem kriyim odom. It's not a place, a settled place where an Odom is a reference to you, to the Jewish people, as an Odom. It's not a settled place, a good spiritual place for a person to settle there. An Ort, because it's a place also, Layoshav Odom would refer to the Odom Elyon, the supreme man, which is Hashem. An Ort, ves kumt nider Odom HaElyon, the person, the Odom Elyon, because the divine, the supreme Odom, is which is mentioned in the Nevuah of Yecheskel, the Musa Kisei, the Muskimare Odom, Olav Milamoilo, that he saw in the vision of Yecheskel, he saw the image of the throne. There was an image, looked like a person on it, Milamoilo. So that's the Odom, that's the divine Odom on the Kisei. That Odom is Lo Yoshav, doesn't sit. So first of all, Yidden can't settle there. Hashem doesn't settle there. So since you're going in such a place, ken dorten treffen, so it might happen, as Eid soll nicht beistehen, die Nisyonis, welche seine verantworten. Maybe a Jew will not be able to overcome the tests that exist there. Und soll stehen in einem du Matzv Shalacher, he'll stand in a situation of being another, Rahman al-Islam. That, God forbid, be in such a situation. And as it actually happened, there were all the tests and there were all the arguments that they didn't have while they were going journeying in the Midbar. They needed to take along the bones of Yosef, the Avodah Unisinas Koyach. They needed that service and giving that extra infusion of strength for Yosef Hashem Li Ben Achar, to add to me a son from Achar, from the Maimed of Matzah Shel Achar, being in a situation of Achar, being in a Midbar, being Nisyonis, to Machon Ben Lavinu Shebashamayim, to make a son to our Father in heaven, to turn around and to continue and bring back and to be a Ben. So the Rebbe explains now in Nois Hey that that's why the taking along the Atzmas Yosef was necessary before they entered in the desert, before they went to Eretz Yisrael. Had they gone straight to Eretz Yisrael, they wouldn't be in a situation where there would be an Acher, there would be a desert. But the fact that they're traveling in a desert is a dangerous place, both physically and spiritually, and therefore over there it's necessary to take along the bones of Yosef, because there's a lot of challenges there, and to give the strength to take these difficult situations and remain, and to make, to bring back and make a ben to our Father in heaven. And this is also now the Rebbe is going to say in Ois Vav, the lesson for all times. Und das ist euch der Hero, was man nennt, Aroisev Kol Azmani V'Amekoymes. This is something which we learn for all the times and all the places. From them was Vayikach Moshe Satz Yosef Imer, from that Moshe takes the bones of Yosef with him. So we learned this for all the time, the lesson. The Rebbe asked in the beginning, what's the lesson? The Alicha von Eden calls man Meshach Hagolus. The journey of the entire duration of the Golus is doch kemuvam bepashas mevurim for him, is, as we see, understood literally. Simply, we just look around and we can see it, and it's also explained this for him. It's a halicha in midbar ha'amim. It's like a journey in the wilderness of the nations. It's a midbar. It's a midbar ha'amim. Hotman in them the nitzchis. So we have the eternal lesson. Azayindik in Golus, that when we're in exile, Darf men mitnem and atzmes Yosef, we must take along the bones of Yosef, which means we must in the Golus, the avoida from Yosef to Machon and Achar, the service of Yosef to make someone else, to make up someone else, to make up a stranger, as a zolzurik verna ben lavin shebashmaim, to turn him back, to bring him back and make him a son to our Father in heaven. Und das ist euch the Sheiches zum Sehen von dem friedlichen Posuk. And this also is the connection to the Posuk before it says, Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael meretz Mitzrayim. Chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael. Chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael, meaning, Rashi, one pshat, mentioned earlier, was einer von the Pirushim is, one of the meanings, interpretations, Vachamushim is, what one of them is, V'arav gebracht euch in Pirush Rashi, as brought down also in Rashi's commentary, Echad mechamisha yotzu ba'avoyu chalokim meisu b'shleishis yimei afelo. Chamushim means 1/5 came up because 1 of 5 only went out, 1/5 went out. And the other 4 parts, meisu b'shleishis yimei afelo, they died during the 3 days of darkness so that the Mitzrayim shouldn't see and they shouldn't celebrate or think that they were punished as well. So they died. And in any event, only 1/5 came out. Of them is the Torah Mamshech. So the Torah continues. Since he takes the bones of Yosef with him, since we take along the bones of Yosef for the duration of all the time, also including the time of Golus that follows. They take him out in the desert, which is right then, after going out of Mitzrayim, they went in the desert of Sinai. But this includes also the going through the desert of Mizbar Amim. All the exile follows. As from Eden was is Achar, that from every Jew who is Achar, who is estranged, who is other, Machtmen Aben Lavinu Shebashamayim, we make him into a son to our Father, Lavinu to our Father in heaven. But jeder Yid ausgelöst von Golus, werden von Golus. That's how every Yid is going to be redeemed. Go out of Golus is to take along the Atzmas Yosef, to make the Ben Acher. Und wie gerät kam upon him. And the Rebbe said, I mentioned many times, there's this language that we use in the Haggadah, Bebiur Loshen Razal in der Teshuva of the Shalis HaBen Rosh. The Rebbe explains the language, our sages of blessed memory, they explain, they give the reason of the Shalis HaBen Rosh. So the question, the Ben Rosh, what do we answer? The Ben Rosh asks, what is you doing this? Lochem v'loi loi. He's asking, challenging the father who's making the Seder. He's asking him, that's the Ben Rosh. So what is the answer the Razal say? What is the answer that we answer Ben Rosh? Ilu hoya shom loy hoya nigol. Had you been there, you would not be freed. So the Rebbe explains what it means if you were there. That only as daf given will given shom in Mitzrayim, only if you were in Mitzrayim loy hoya nigol, you would be redeemed. Aber in der Geula of the Mitzvah Golus, but in the redemption of the present Golus, but euch nigel werden, he too will be freed. Mikra mala dibur, and there's a full pasuk. It's a full pasuk spoken. Vivtiach and promised hakosuf. Mikra mala dibur vivtiach hakos. The pasuk says it very clearly, openly, fully, and promises. Bilti yidach menu nidach. Nobody will be pushed away. Gebracht geworden the Psak Din. This is actually mentioned as a halacha, as the Rebbe brings down in the note over here. Das Gufe ist beide bei ihm, soll sich umkehren labai luterose. This itself, knowing that nobody will be pushed away, and that everybody will be redeemed. And the Iluho Yeshom was only from Mitzrayim, but now everybody will come out. because over there, one-fifth stayed behind, but not now. So this brings about also knowing that for him to return to Hashem and His Torah, to become a smart son to his Father in heaven. So basically, over here, the Rebbe explains the lesson that we have today, that when we are going in our journey in the desert, how do we go out of this desert? Uh, and from this desert, from this Golos, everybody's going to go out. Over there, it was Chamushim, only one-fifth went out, because the rest of them that weren't fit to go out. But here, since we're taking along the Atzmas Yosef with us, everybody's going to go out, because the Atzmas Yosef are going to make sure that we take from the Achar, we make it a ben, from the Achar, we make it into a ben, that nobody, and now everybody will go out together with the bones of Yosef. That's the way to earn merit redemption. Now the Rebbe is going to connect this to the portion of Shabbat, and then connect the Yosef. Beshalach is in the month of Shvat, and how it's connected with Yosef, and how it's connected to the Frierdiker Rebbe, who is also Yosef. Zion. Parsha Beshalach leint men allemol in Chodesh Shvat. The portion of Beshalach we always read in the month of Shvat. Because Chodesh Shvat is verbunden b'miyuchad mit der Avodah von Yosef. The month of Shvat is specifically connected with the Avodah of Yosef. What's the connection of Yosef with Shvat? Because if you divide the 12 months by the tribes, 12 tribes, so you start with the Reuven, so you start with Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, then Shvat is the 11th month of the year, which Yosef is the 11th son. Kiyudua, as known as Yud Beis Chodesh Hashanah, that the 12 months of the year, Zani Keneged the Yud Beis Shvatim, they correspond to the 12 tribes. Und die Shvatim, and when you count the orders as they were born in the chronicle order of birth, kumtuis, the chronological order of birth, kumtuis, as Chodesh Shvat is the Elfter Chodesh, that the month of Shvat is the 11th month from Nisan. If you start from Nisan, Shvat is 11. It's connected Yosef, that corresponds to Yosef. So what's the connection from the month of Shvat with Yosef? So the Rebbe brings down that from the name Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, if you have four letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei, you can make 12 different combinations. And every month has its combination. So what's the combination of Shvat? The Shaykhis from Chodesh Shvat to Yosef, that men verstehen, behagdim amavur in Kabbalah, so we'll understand connecting Shvat to Yosef by first introducing what's explained in the Kabbalah, as in the Yud Beis Chodesh Hashanah Zayin and Meir, that in the 12 months of the year they shine, the Yud Beis Tziruf Shem Havaya, the 12 combination of the name of Hashem. In Yed Mechodesh is Meir Atziruf B'Yuchat from Shem Havaya. In every month there is a special combination of the name of Havaya. So what's the Tziruf for Shem Havaya for Chodesh Shvat? The Kabbalah. What's the combination of Chodesh Shem Havaya Chodesh Shvat? Is that Tziruf versus Yitzim Rosh Tevis. So there's the combination that comes out from the Rosh Tevis just through the words. Hey Yud Vav K. That's the four letters in the order of Hey Yud Vav K. The pasuk is Homer Yimereno v'Hoyahu. Homer Hey Yimereno the Yud v'Hoya the Vav, and the Hu is the Hey. So you have Hey Yud Vav K. So the Rebbe is going to explain this. What does it mean? How is this Rosh Tevis of Homer Yimereno v'Hoyahu? Doesn't seem to fit the shame Havaya, the content, the pasuk over there talks that one is not allowed to exchange a korban designated for a sacrifice to exchange it for another animal, and then if he does exchange it, then he becomes as well consecrated because you can't exchange. So it almost seems like the person is referring to. I mean, the pasuk is talking about a violation. How would this represent the Shem Havaya? Was l'chayra fadet sich bir. It seems like this requires explanation. This name of Hey Yud Vav K that comes out from that pasuk, it requires explanation. Al inyonim in Torah zayin betachlis hadiyuk. Everything in Torah is totally precise. Muslim doch sagen, so therefore, we have to say, as the Werter, that these words of, it's not just that, okay, it happens to be Heid Yud Vot Kei, that combination Shem Havaya, but there's something, a content connection over there. Was is der Tziruf, the words Homirenu V'Yehu, was is der Tziruf from Shem Havaya Shebechayde Shvat. That becomes the combination of the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is in the month of Shvat. Seine verbunden mit der Teuchenlinie von dem Posuk, that it has a connection, it's tied with the content of the idea of this Posuk. Isn't it moving? So it's not understood. In Posuk, steht doch freier v'lo yimirenu. You should not exchange it. She's a lamin Torah. It's a prohibition of the Torah. Bizas kol hameimir loika, that anybody who exchanges gets malchus. As is nor, the Torah tells don't exchange it. This pasuk is as v'im. If Homer Yimereno is, if he does exchange, which he's not supposed to do, but if he does it, because then you have the Vav K, Vav Yud. They have the Hey, then the Hoyus Rasa Kodesh. Homer Yimereno v'hoyahu. If you did it, then, but you're not supposed to do that. So how does this Shem Havaya fit in the name of Yudke Vovke? The Hey Yud Vovke have a connection to the Pasuk. Und da sagt man, as der Tziruf Shem Havaya Shebechayde Shvat. Here we're saying that the combination of the name of Havaya in the month of Shvat is from the Werter Homer Yimerenu v'Hoyahu B'fnei Atzmam, by themselves, even without sounding like you're not mentioning that there's something wrong with it, and just saying that this is looks like a positive. Kilu as if this would be a positive matter. It almost seems like it's actually an instruction. You should exchange it. B'shas, really, it's not so. B'shas, as Pashtus Akosu Ve'inyan is doch leibach, the simple meaning of the verse, and the idea is just the opposite. As metornit meimer zayin v'lo yimerenu, you're not allowed to exchange it. So, how do we make this Shvat, the Rosh Tevis of Shem Havaya, and how does it connect to that posuk of exchange? So the Rebbe was explaining over here that this has to do with the fact that in order to change around the other person, to bring him in, sometimes you got to lower yourself to go out in order to bring the other person in. And that's why sometimes you're not allowed to. It's a negative, but this is the way to bring the Ben Ach. Let's see what the Rebbe says. The explanation of this based on the above. The Teuchen Inyan Atmura Baveda Ruchnis is what is the idea of exchange in the spiritual service? Those was bite ois ein Sache verzweite, that you exchange one item for something else. As von adover choil macht man kedusha, that you take from a weekly matter, you may turn it into kedusha. But das is the Teuchen Hanal. This is the idea of what we talked about before for Yosef Havaya Li Ben Achar, to add to me a son from Achar. As funan Achar macht man a ben, from somebody a stranger, when you make him into a son. That means that you're exchanging weekly and you make him kedusha. From an Achar you make to a son. Was in the Aveda for machen von an Achar ben? How could you make from the stranger in that service, to take the stranger, make him a son? You got to reach out to him. It requires to descend to the weekly. As Aida Farois came from Zain Ort, that Aid needs to leave his place. Was gefindt sich betoich on in the metaphorically before, you find yourself within the cloud. As he tells Yeshua, say, V'ilachem, go out of the cloud. He finds himself in the cloud, in the Daled Amas Shel Torah V'Shel Tefillah. He's in the 4 cubits of Torah and prayer. When there is Gemechutz La'omen Canal, you have to go outside of the cloud, as said before. Und sein in dem Ort, and because you have to go to the place was gefindt sich der Acher, where that strange one finds himself. You have to go out to him. With the noch Poilen, then you have to impact him as from the Acher, so Verna ben Begoli, that from this Acher should be openly a son. Turn him around to make a son out of him. But das ist doch a Tnua von Tmura. That's a movement, that's an exchange. Tmura mitzad mashpia. First, there's an exchange because of the influencer. At his machlefes mekoyme, he has to change his place from his daladamasel Torah tefillah, change his place, and geht to l'shus harabim, and he goes to the public domain. Und dort poilt and then over there he impacts the Tamur of the Macha, the exchange of the other. As Ashtot an Achar soll ben, that instead of a stranger should become a son. So there is both exchange. The person has to exchange, the one who, the influencer has to change his place in order to go out from his place of protection, his onon, his cubits of Torah mitzvahs to the Rishus Harabim, to the public domain. And then over there he changes around. The person who is an Achar, he meets the Achar there, and then he turns around, makes him into a Ben. So then there can be an argument. Why should he have to leave his four Amas? That's his 4 Amas given. This is holy. To go to the public domain, in order to search and look for an Achar and make him to a son. His besser soll bleiben in the Daled Amas shall Kedusha. He better rather stay in the 4 cubits of holiness. Especially his argument is, as das Areisgehen is verbunden mit einer Soin. This to exit is tied with a test. Und wir beten auch beim Obersten, and we ask them, Hashem, to bring me to a test. So the fact that he has to go out, why should he go out? First of all, just leaving Kedusha in itself. Why should you leave Kedusha to go search that, especially when it could be dangerous? And we ask Hashem, we pray, don't bring me to a test. Certainly a person cannot place himself in a test. So how could he go out? Of them enter Torah. That's what Torah's response is. As timidim kisidram darf sein, that the ordinary way is v'lo yimirenu. You can't exchange really. Those is their seder al derech harogil. That's the order on the normal way. You have to stay inside. Don't exchange. But when you see that there's a yid in the desert, midbar canal in the desert of the nations, in Golus, as I said before, in a matzah for sakonis nefoshes, he's in a condition danger of losing their lives. And it goes without saying, we're talking about many yidden. Then you need to interrupt your study of Torah, your service of davening, and to go out the mitzvah to fulfill the greatest mitzvah, to go ahead and save these yidden that find himself in a situation of danger. Will not gain. And when you argued, I don't want to go, as only that he is worried that he shouldn't be hurt in his spirituality. Torah says that this is a chosid shaitan. That's considered to be a foolish chosid, to act in such a way to try to protect himself. A quote from the Mishnah of Soitochav Aleph. B'shas es handelt sich wegen a ish or isha. When there is a man or a woman, a tinuk v'taneches, that a child or a boy or a girl, they're drowning in the river. You're saying, I'm not going to go there because she's not dressed, and then it brings you made bad thoughts, and you're going to say, I'm not going to save her. That's a chassid shaita. That's a fool's chassid. If somebody's in danger, you go and you save them. That's a physical danger, but this is in a danger spiritually. The kosher because a spiritual danger is even worse than physical danger, as quoting that from the Sifri, that one who makes one sin is worse than killing him. So if to save one from death, you're supposed to do, and don't worry so much about your own righteousness, your own chassidus. You're a chassid shait if you do that. So the same thing is when there's spiritual death out there, you must go out and protect them. Musman damut leifu meitzel sein on cheshbonis. Then you must run and save without any consideration, any encounters. Und Tomer tut man das nicht. And when if you don't do that, is nicht nur was das is hepe von a chassid. It's not only that you're not a chassid, afil a chassid shein a chacham, and it's not only that you're not a chassid, which is not a chacham, which the Rebbe says is a shoita, that you're not doing, you're not at the level of beyond the letter of the law. You're not a chassid, but no, this is hepech hadin. This is goes against halacha. If you don't do unadin achi chomer, and a very serious halacha, pikuach nefesh, saving a life. So the Rebbe says that this is the lesson from this is that one has to go out. The fact that the Torah says here, Hameri Mereno, the name of the Shem Havaya, which seems to be telling a person to exchange, the level of exchange really means to go out, to make an exchange, because this whole idea of bringing in another person, the person having to leave his place and to go outside, and the fact that he endangers himself spiritually, and bringing another yid, changing him over, this is actually an obligation when there is a danger out there, when there's a konas nefashis, and it's not just a chassid shaita, but it's not. It's actually against halacha to stand by idly and not go do pikuach nefesh, that the Rebbe explained at length in this ois. In ois ches, the Rebbe says that you actually are successful when you go out and you turn around another yid. Ches ubishas mefirzach boifranal mitzad v'apiyah Torah. When you do so, because, and according to the instruction, because of the Torah, you're doing it because of the mitzvah. Also, including that this first you have to descend from your level. You go out, but God forbid, and Hashem's protect us, you don't bring the Torah down. You make no compromises in Torah. Balachas kam v'kama, how much more so as chas v'sholem v'rachmanu l'tzlan. God forbid, and may Hashem protect the machdish kin shinuyim in Torah mitzvahs. You don't make any changes in Torah mitzvahs. Kum da haftocha, you give the promise. Homer yimereno v'hoyu smarosu yi kodesh. You will exchange it, and they'll both be kodesh. Noisef of them adosis. In addition, that this doesn't hurt him, God forbid, nor Saihu, Sait Morose, both he and his exchange. The Tzveiter Idvas is Madregas Achar. The other Jew who is on the level of an Achar, they will be holy in a way of they will be. In other words, for sure, though that will be Kodesh. Those Gufa state in the Rosh Tevis, Havaya Shebechodesh Shvat. That itself is in the abbreviation of the month of Shvat. Hameri Marenu v'hoyahu. V'hoyahu. Hoyahu means, what is hoya? V'hoya means that b'haviyosi. Yay, that it should be like that. The Gemara says in many places that it stays. It should be as the umen zokt v'hoyahu. He will be. In other words, this is without a question. V'hoyahu. Pshita, as in Vetke Yerida Nitzayin. It's obvious there will be no descent, nor netoisef, But besides that, hey, as is, that's the way he will stay. He will stay at his is v'nimshach kach, that he is, and he extends so with the full force and in holiness of Kedusha Shaloi, with his holiness in the descent. So that's the person that he's not going to end up losing. It's hinted in the words the Rebbe says. When who tomorrow you will impact, you will stay, you will be, and you will continue your level of holiness. And similarly, as it connects to the recipient, it'll by dem acher, it'll be k'moishehu, as is doch sein Yiddishkeit be'ofen shel hu. But him by him is who, it's he, nister, not present, but you're saying he, not you, ato, but who, he, meaning Hashem is in a way of nister, behelam. As gewinnschatake in him, it's here, by him, but it's hidden, gesagt in the Rambam, as jeder Id, that every Yid Reitzel Liyas Mi Yisrael wants to be of the Jewish people, and wants to do all the mitzvahs. So he is, but it's who? Das ist aber bei Shel Helem. That part of his Yiddishkeit that he wants to be is hidden. Hepech from Zeh. It's not Zeh, it's who? He, not Zeh. Was weißt du bei Dover Agoli? I said, but who versus Zeh? Und der Ida Mashpia poilt und tut oif. The one that is influenced accomplishes it. And what he accomplishes, V'hoya hu. That the who, as the Nitzus von Yiddishkeit was gefindt sich in ihm behelem. That spark of Yiddishkeit which is hidden in him, so poil sein pulose begolui uvoifen shel v'hoya. The hoya who, that who should be bavosi yehebechol tekef, that who should be with the full force, that it should take place, that should take over the person. So that person who was a who should become a zeh, should be a v'hoya, that should impact him, so that they're both, the mashpia stays at his level, and he gets the who level brought out, and it reveals the B'chol HaTekef. Test from the Tziruf Shem Havaya Shebechoyde Shvat Nemt Marus Noch Hayro Ikris in the Avodah for Yesod Eliyahu Ben Achar. We take out an additional lesson in the Avodah Yesod Ben Achar. Sido divos kuma b'tayna b'tayna. There's one common argument. They're just looking to complain. Shas metut mit Yidden, we bring him rein. When you work with a Yid and you bring him in the mordvu the tur gefinzach, into the place where the one who's working finds himself on Yener bleibt dort, and the person remains there. In the dalad amos shel Torah v'shel tefillah, he stays in the 4 cubits of Torah, the 4 amas of Torah and davening. B'toicha onan, he stands in the cloud. For statement details shebazeh, then you understand the benefit of it. You made from the stranger, you turn him into a son to our Father in heaven. The tale is, what is, however, the benefit to legend tefillin et ha'idin, to put on tefillin with a Jew, or that another mitzvah, some other mitzvah creates ein all to do it at one time. Because he goes back outside of the cloud, he doesn't stay in the cloud. So in a he goes to his previously 4 cubits amas. Bleibt nicht in the Dalad Amas shel Torah Tefillah, doesn't remain in the 4 cubits of Torah and davening. The emes is over lahepach. The truth is the opposite. Ubemes from Torah, and this is Torah true. Sagdim bora b'Torah. This is a very clear ruling of the Torah. Dvar Hashem zu halacha, which is the words of Hashem is halacha. Ubelshona yad chazaka, and the language of the yad chazaka. Tzorich kol adam sheyira atzmei. Every person has to see himself. Ki'ilu chetzi zaka v'chetzi chayiv. If he is half merit and half guilt, half positive and half negative, and also the whole world, chetzi zaka v'chetzi chayiv, is half meritorious and half guilty. Also, mitzvah achas, you do one mitzvah. Then you tilted yourself and the entire world for the side of merit. You cause yourself and them salvation and a help for everybody. So one act is all what it takes. Noisef of Msagdin Borer. In addition to this very clear ruling, so one mitzvah makes a big difference. Is Yeder Molvos Aidis Mekaima mitzvah. Every time that a Jew fulfills a mitzvah, mitzvah Loshen Tzavsa V'chibur, that creates mitzvah that comes from Loshen of connection and binding. Tzvishin the Mekaima mitzvah, it makes a binding between the one who fulfills the mitzvah and the Ebersten and Hashem, the mitzvah mitzvahs, the commander of the mitzvahs. When the wird verbunden mit Neubersten Ayichud Nitzchi becomes united with Hashem with an eternal unity. Neusevals, in addition to this, Vibaldos is a Pu'ulas mitzvah. This is a act of a mitzvah. Hotzin sich de Tchunas kipsak din borum mishnah. It also has, in addition to all that, it has the characteristic as the very clear ruling in the Mishnah, mitzvah gareres mitzvah, one mitzvah drags along another mitzvah. The mitzvah at im goyder zayin, this mitzvah will drag into tonacha mitzvah to do another mitzvah. Welchem et goyder zayin nocha mitzvah, then will cause another mitzvah dragging chulu. Bis to werden Hashem Torah mitzvah till it become one who keeps all Torah mitzvahs. Was der weil zette nit beine bosse wie utmrosi kodesh. And the fact that apparently right now he doesn't see it with his eyes of flesh, that the exchange that is holy, if them is der Antwer, that is the answer. Borur und the Rof and the Mitziruf Sheva Vaye b'diyukay. This is the clear answer in the lesson of the combination, the name of Hashem specifically. Homer Yimorenu v'hoyahu. It says just this part of the pasuk. V'hoyahu as der hemsh on them hemshach hakosum. It doesn't bring down even utmorosi kodesh that the exchange will be kodesh. Wird nit gesagt in the Rosh Tevis. That's not said utmorosi kodesh. It just says v'hoyahu Homer Yimorenu v'hoyahu. You have to just do, you exchange, you have to put an effort as necessary. Even though through that he is descending. Zmanis, temporarily. And temporarily he goes out from his 4 cubits. In order to impact on another Jew, which is which is on the level of Achar. But the result, whether the person influenced, whether immediately he'll become holy, or the Chazal nit, or not, is nit kind in sein shlichus. That's not a condition on his mission. The signal in butter. If it just says Hoya who that he will be who yiya, not Utmorosi Kodesh. That doesn't say. Signal butter. The shlichus von Aiden is ton the Maisa. The mission of a Yid is to do the act oifton, but to accomplish those is the Meibish's Chelek. That's Hashem's work. Pshita the Smeit needs zogen. But doesn't mean to say lie to Hashem. You do it as Chaz v'Sholom as is maspik and ein mol kapula mitayidin. That is once enough. We'll just do it once with a yid. That's enough. Sai believe that Torah, sai keep my mitzvahs, learning Torah or observing mitzvahs should be enough. Just do once. The noch lost him up Chaz v'Sholom, but then he lets him go. God forbid. Calls man hotatzutri to the eden. As long as you have an approach to that yid, you have access to that yid. You got to keep on igniting that lamp Hashem, which is the soul of man. You have to keep on igniting it. As our sages of blessed memory told us in a similar situation. Filu may upon him even 100 times. Until you have the flame going up on its own. He becomes a luminary lamp, so you have to keep on doing it. The kavona is also the intent. The kavona is as in a fall. Also in the case when you can, you have to keep on doing and trying to make him into a real good Jew. But it also is intended as in a fall that also in the case you just bump into a Jew. Boises man zet men nor a Möglichkeit, and at that particular time you just see a possibility. So told me to em an einske meise mitzvah just to do a one act of a mitzvah, but man waste it because he doesn't know oib when vet him zenachmol if and when he will see him again. Darfeton kefi kol yicholta. You have to put emphasize kol yicholta. You have to do el on your ability of his manza at that time. Und das ist ein Schlichus. That is your mission. Homer yimerenu v'hayahu. You have to change and it should be who, and then let the Eibishter do the Rebbe. The very powerful words that the Rebbe speaks over here in the lesson. Yud kol anal is negei b'yuchel l'reinu zel is man zeh. All the above, especially connected to our generation, to our time. Because Yom HaSidi B'Shvat, the 10th day of Shvat, is the Yom HaIstalkus HaIlula for Nasidarenu. That's the passing Hilula from the leader of our generation, the Rebbe, the B'Shver, the Rebbe, my father-in-law, which in many years comes close to the portion of Beshalach, was B'Yom HaIlula, but on the day of a Yortzeit from a Tzaddik, of a Tzaddik Zan Oila L'Maylo, go up above all of his actions, his learning, his service, Asher Ovadbo, that he served the Koimei Chayev during his lifetime. Thus his Meirim is Galeb B'chinas Gilim Lamata, it shines and is revealed in a revealed way from above to below. Zetman as Odi and Hoge from Yosef. So we see that conduct of Yosef Hashem Li Ben Achar, to add, his name was Yosef, that to take a Ben Achar, for an Achar Machana Ben, to turn from another, make him into a son. Is thus given an Ekuta Tichoina. That was a central point for Maisav V'Terosim Avedos, from his actions, his teachings, and his service from the Baal HaYilula, from the Baal HaYilula, from Yitzhak Friedrich Rebbe, the Yosef Shebederenu, the Yosef of our generation, Kishmoy Harishon, has his first name Yosef. Yosef Yitzchak, the first name is Yosef, on which he actually literally self-sacrificed during his entire lifetime in this world. And he sent messenger agents, shluchim, serving as his agents, that self-sacrificed in this. And the shluchim of his shluchim, which find themselves in all corners of the world, and they work on seine matzliach, and they're successful to mekarav sein Eden lavim shebashamayim, to bring Yidden close to their Father in heaven. Since they're doing it in the mission of and with the power of the leader of our generation, was Trogdem Shem Yosef, who carries the name Yosef, is Noisef as in Zei wird nit chas v'sholem ki yiride b'madrigosim. In addition, that in them there is no descent, God forbid, in their level, but adrabe, but on the contrary, naasem moicha v'libam zakim elef pam kocha. Their minds and hearts become refined 1,000 times as much, as the Rebbe reference from the Alter Rebbe in Teroir. Unod di maila, and also that disadvantage was vert oivgiton by the machar, that is accomplished by the other, as b'mokim shabalat tshuva imdim afilu tzadikim gemureim nechilim lamed bay, that in the place that's great tzadikim stand, Baal Tshuvas stand, tzaddikim can't stand there. So now they accomplished, made this into Baal Tshuvas. Vert oivgiton oich by the shluchim. So also the shluchim get accomplished. They get that as well. The kolzen and ephim, that the level of Baal, since they made the Baal Tshuva, they get to the level of Baal Tshuva, that which is greater than tzaddikim gemurim. The kolzen in an ephim from Yitzchak. Then this is in a way of Yitzchak, Chosim Shmei the Baal HaYilula. The second day is sealed, the end name of the Baal HaYilula. Uschoik b'simcha v'tuv levov, you do it, Yosef, with Yitzchak, with joy and with God's heart, u'vaybarcheyu Hashem. And Hashem blesses him, as it says with regard to Yosef HaTzadik, Kol Asher Oisel, Hashem blesses him, Echiyadon b'fnei atzmai, each one individually. Through this service, gain Ali Yidden Arayin, in Tzivus Hashem, all Yidden go into the armies of Hashem. As wird aufgestellt der Tzava von Kol Yisrael, you raise up the army of all Yidden, the Klal Yisrael, the general Yidden. Ubnei Yisrael Yitzim Biyadromo. The Jewish people go out with a raised up hand, Bereish Gelei, as the translation of Biyod Rama. Reish Gelei, the hint of the previous Rebbe's name, uh, from the Targum over here. Uh, the Rebbe speaks in other sichas, Bebeis Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Kam Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Was Mashiach Osid, La Sovet Tzadikai B'Tiyufta. Mashiach will bring the tzaddikim to be Bal Tshuva. The Gula Hamitis V'Hashlema, with the true and complete redemption. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Beshalach Tovshin Chav Gimel and Tovshin Lamed Ches and Shabbos Parshas Va'era Tovshin Mem Hei.